Hello, my name is Zelthius. I am your fuzzy creature shopkeeper for the Dainsley Retrotech Shop and Arcade. This is Shopkeep's log, store date 9, I think. I could be wrong. Um, I really need to keep on top of that. I'm not going to be keeping track of the time as much today. I'm just going to ramble while I fish. Um, Hopefully I don't get too distracted, but, I spent a ton of time in this world the other day on stream with some friends, and not normally one for fishing, but I kind of fell in love with it a little bit. Not gonna lie. No idea what to talk about today, as is usual with this kind of stuff. I am trying my best to clear the storm of thoughts in my head, which I think is part of the reason why I feel so inclined towards fishing right now, because it is kind of a tranquil activity, I guess. I didn't really understand it until I started getting older, but, you know, my dad and my grandpa really like fishing, so I guess it runs in the family, and I just caught a boot. Lovely. But anyway, I guess the thing that I am thinking about the most today is just feeling a little bit like an outcast. I can't for sure tell how other people think or anything like that, and so I try to not think about it too much, because that's entirely out of my realm of control, and dwelling on it just doesn't really do me any good. Trying to avoid thinking about stuff that makes me unhappy or feel bad about myself, you know? I also say, far too much. I need to quit doing that. I think that's something that I do because I feel like a bit of an outcast, if that makes sense. Some way of seeking solidarity in other people's opinions and understanding. The reality of it is that, while yes, I definitely seek to be understood by those around me, it's kind of one of those weird, complicated things to think about. Because at the end of the day, nobody is ever really going to truly understand me. There are going to be a lot of people who can relate and have similar ideas and think similarly, but I don't think there will ever be a point in time in which there will be someone who really can just, like, understand me down to the core of myself, because I don't even understand myself, like, half the time. A lot of this is just rambling, and it's just really scary to be vulnerable with my thoughts like this. And I've received several comments from people who appreciate this candidness, I guess is what I could call it, which is pretty neat, you know. I wasn't really sure how people were going to react to this stuff, but the overall outlook is pretty positive. And I like making these because it's a way that I can express myself that I normally wouldn't be able to, even on stream. I've thought about doing some content like this on stream, but I also don't want to alienate my audience away from we're just kind of generally talking about relatively lighthearted stuff, like what kind of video games or music or flavors of cheese people like, you know? There I go saying, again. I guess that's going to be a habit that's hard to regulate, but still. I guess the easiest way to explain this, and sorry I'm putting the fishing pole in the camera there, trying to avoid that, is to say that, I don't know. Even surrounded by friends and family, I feel relatively alone. I spend far too much time by myself, probably. I could stand to socialize more, but everybody has a different version of socialization that they consider to be normal. And I like to have deep philosophical conversations with people, even if they're people that I'm really only barely acquainted with. Which, maybe that's my bad, but I find it really interesting to connect with somebody in that way. To see where their actual deep, true thoughts lie. But it's also simultaneously really scary, because when you peer into the void peers back, right? If you're going to be asking these deep questions to other people, they're fully within their right to ask the same kinds of questions back to you. And I don't know if I'm really ready to answer a lot of those questions, so I guess I spend too much time secluding myself. And of course, I'm just rambling because I can't really think of anything meaningful to say, and maybe that's just fine. Maybe there doesn't have to be a specific intent behind talking. And maybe sometimes it's important to get a little weird and just kind of talk totally, completely unregulated stream of consciousness without really auditing yourself. Which I guess is really what this is supposed to be, is just the fluffy creature guy on the internet exploring the stream of consciousness. And I know I say that every single time, and it's probably gonna get annoying at some point. And if it does, I do apologize for that, but hey, if that's your thing, I really appreciate you sitting and listening to what I have to say, even if there's not really any, like, gravity to what I'm saying, I guess. It's kind of refreshing in a way to be able to talk about my more philosophical thoughts that I have without that, like, what if the person I'm talking to just thinks I'm, like, full of it or whatever? I mean, this is definitely a strange way to use this kind of a platform, but personally, I think it's kind of refreshing to be candid like this. I don't think there are enough creators out there who are as invested in, at least in part, showing an authentic part of themselves. Which is not to say that any other creator is inauthentic, but as a creator myself, we have a tendency to fairly heavily audit the parts of ourselves that we present to our audiences. Because this is the kind of conversations that maybe some people wouldn't want to have on a live stream or something like that, unless it was a specific dedicated, let's just talk about weird whack philosophy and explore the stream of consciousness stuff. But the niche for that, I think that's how you say that word, but I could be wrong, is probably pretty narrow. A lot of people may see this as kind of a pointless rambling, and to a degree they're right, but at the same time, there may be value in expressing ideas and thoughts that normally would sit very dormant and unevaluated behind the mask of what's considered acceptable or enjoyable content by people. Maybe I'm getting too into the weeds with this line of thought, but hey, who knows? Someone may find this interesting. And, of course, if the fishing bothers you, I apologize. I just thought it would be a fun way to kind of, sort of spice this up, I guess. I don't know. Plus, it's a lot of fun, like I said at the beginning here. Strangely soothing. I'm willing to agree that, but also potentially maybe a little bit too distracting for this particular format. Maybe helpful. Who knows? If you have any opinions on that, feel free to voice them in the comments, I guess. At this point, the stream of consciousness is diverting in far too many directions for me to just kind of pick one and go with it. Really interested in trying more of this kind of experimental stuff. Visiting more game worlds or things like that. Specifically for the Shopkeep logs. Something simple enough that it can be done without giving it too much thought. And that way, I don't know, this is kind of an interesting thing that I've noticed. I don't know if anyone else experiences this or not, but the easiest way I can explain it is there's this game called Audio Surf. It came out forever ago. Basically, you put your own music into it, and then it generates this track that you collect colored like boxes on as it plays through the music. It's a pretty fun game. There's a second version of it that's available. I haven't really spent much time with the newer version, but a lot of the time I would just kind of think about stuff while mindlessly playing the game in the background. It's one of those weird Zen games, I guess. I kind of view this fishing thing in that same line of thinking, where it's just enough to keep me entertained, but not so much so that I can't think about stuff. I don't know if that makes sense. If it does, cool. If it doesn't, I tried my best to explain, and that's all I can really do. But still, I think that's a fascinating phenomena, and I'd be curious to know if anyone else really experiences that when they're playing games that are generally fairly simplistic in their nature, where you just kind of find yourself lost in thought, as it were. I have no idea how long this recording has gone, but as I said, the stream of consciousness is starting to diverge in more ways than I can keep track of at the moment. So I think maybe that would be a good place to end things off for today's Shopkeep log. There are going to be some more experimental forms of content out there. This is kind of one of them. Not sure how out there I'm going to get with it, but we'll just have to see. I'm probably going to be posting more pre-recorded stuff. There is that music review thing that I was doing for some of the music that people submitted for what they listen to when they're trying to focus on what they're doing at the time. That's still in the works. I just have no exact timetable for any of this. This is all just kind of a, like I said, experiment. And Of course, it all ties to whether or not I can find the motivation and momentum to actually put into this stuff, which I'm really trying, you know. I like making content. It's just the constant struggle between wanting to and having the ability to and actually sitting down and recording stuff. But I'm sure I'll figure it out one of these days. Anyway, thank you so much for sitting with me. I hope that this wasn't too crazy out there for anyone. And I hope that whatever time of the day it is for you that you find this, that you have a wonderful rest of your day. I will see you in the next one. Bye-bye.